Ladies and gentlemen, the RTX 2060. Incredible. That GPU, that entire demonstration was being run on this GPU here, the RTX 2060, the long-awaited RTX 2060. It is here. So the RTX 2060, 52 teraflops of tensor core processing, 5 gigaarrays per second, 6 gigabyte frame buffer, G6, the fastest memories in the world. Okay? That's what it took to play what you just saw, Battlefield V, with ray tracing on. Now let's take a look at the performance. What you were looking at, if RTX was off, the frame rate would be about 60 frames per second. A really fantastic experience. Really fantastic experience. Battlefield V, 1440p, 2 megapixels, on a 2060, over 60 frames per second. Now, when you turn on ray tracing, this is what happens. And for many, they were somewhat disappointed by that, even though it was so much more beautiful. And so, as you know, we've been thinking about this for quite some time. And we know that ray tracing is computationally intensive, and it's going to continue to be computationally intensive, and that's the reason why we added the right proportioning between ray tracing cores, RT cores, and tensor cores, so that we could apply DLSS to this, and as a result, ladies and gentlemen, this is my favorite demo right here. Whoop. That's my favorite demo. That is good technology. How do they do that? Just like that, DLSS. It looks beautiful, and because that network, that DLSS network, was trained from and learned from so many high-resolution images and trained on this supercomputer, just tons and tons and tons of examples, this huge neural network has become smarter and smarter, and it can predict what is the best pixel to generate. And as a result, reduce the amount of computational load so that we could reduce the resolution and then use DLSS to infer a much more beautiful high resolution. The new Turing GPU has a brand new shader architecture, as I mentioned. We double the amount of operations that we can simultaneously process. We can now process integer operations as well as floating point operations at the same time. We also doubled our cache. And we have because we unified our shared memory and L1 cache, we have the ability to double that as well. So we would expect the performance boost relative to previous generations to be quite substantial. And as you can see, and with all of the other shader technology that you've seen published about Turing, for example, variable rate shading, multi-view rendering, mesh shaders, and just the hundreds of new improvements that we put into our shader technology, shader architecture, you could see that the performance on any games is dramatically higher. But what's really interesting is this, and we would expect this. As games become more and more complex, as their shaders become more and more complex, we would see a trend line of Turing over Pascal to continue to advance. And the reason for that is these shader programs are getting larger and larger and larger. And it has the ability to perform up to almost 2x on Wolfenstein 2, which takes advantage of variable rate shading that we have in our GPU. I'm pretty excited about Doom Eternal coming out this year using the same engine. And so I think that Turing turned out pretty well. What do you guys think? Well, turns out gamers need more performance than ever. if you plotted out all of the games that we have in GFE, these are all the games that our GeForce gamers are playing over the last several years. In order to sustain 60 frames per second at 1080p, you would have to triple the amount of computational capability over the course of the last 4 to 5 years. Meanwhile, resolution has increased from 1080p 60 hertz to 1440p 144 hertz, which is the reason why if you take a look at the number of X60 class, 60 class gamers continue to grow over the last several years. In fact, it almost tripled over the last several generations in the last 4 years. And so if you take a look at the 2060 now, compared to the install base of GeForce, this is kind of what it looks like. I mean, this is pretty extraordinary. A RTX 2060 is higher performance than a 1070 Ti. A 2060 is higher performance than a 1070 Ti. And if you take a look at the rest of the install base, I took the 3 most popular GPUs, the 960, 970, and the 1060, which are in abundance in our install base. It represents about a third of our install base. The step up is really quite extraordinary. And so 2060, higher performance than a 1070 Ti, which is in the market for about $449, $450, and about a third of our install base opts for the X60 class and above. The 2060 was really created to bring all of those install base to next generation. 2060, really fantastic performance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to tell you that the 2060 is available for $349. $349. You can enjoy next generation gaming. 52 trillion tensor flops, 5 gig arrays, 6 gigabytes of G6 memory, $349. Perfect for the entire install base. But that's not all. I got a special gift. We have a special bundle. We're going to bundle with 2060 and 2070. You get either Anthem or Battlefield V. So you can enjoy DLSS or DLSS and ray tracing on Battlefield V. And with 2080 and Ti, you get Anthem and Battlefield V. Incredible value. The 2060 is here now. The number of 2060 graphics cards you're going to be able to enjoy and buy all over the world, the designs from all of our AIC partners are just beautiful and exciting. They'll be available on January 15th, next week. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2060 family. PC gaming companies are so excited about it. A whole slew of new PCs are being built to welcome this next gen of gaming. Hundreds and hundreds of desktop PCs are being built and offered with the RTX 2060 all over the world. You're just going to be able to, starting next week, be able to buy 2060s everywhere. So ladies and gentlemen, the RTX 2060 is incredibly cute, quite frankly. Look how cute he is. It's pretty amazing, right? It's the perfect size. It's the perfect size. Love this. Paul, thank you.
Perfect. So we are visiting the Netherlands again for this demo, the first few days of the Battle of Rotterdam. And one of the methods that we use at DICE to achieve this amount of believability and realism in our game is physically based rendering. So what this means is that if you look at the terrain here, the way that the sun and the light interact with the surface and the materials, you get a physically based look from it. The way the light interacts with it behaves how it would in the real world. And same thing when you look over the water here. You can see the way it reflects, and everything is physically based, which just makes it feel coherent and realistic. But science doesn't get you the whole way when creating a beautiful game, so many of our artists are also taking lots of reference from the real world when creating our assets, particularly this landmark White House of Rotterdam here. Is recreated at almost a 1-to-1 ratio.
Look at that window we're walking by. It looks amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So then when
look
you
at that.
look to the right here,
It looks like glass. You could almost reach out and touch it.
yeah, this shows a great example of the combination of ray tracing and our physical-based rendering and the work that we've been doing with NVIDIA. It really comes together here.
Hey, Jonas, look at the reflection of the windows in the buildings, on the buildings.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's just working.
It's super nice. But of course, it's not a beautiful Dutch city without its own beautiful canals. So we can also walk over here. And of course, this is not just any normal canal, it's a ray trace canal. And we see the boats and the barges nicely reflected down there, as you would expect. And everything is looking really nice. But I would like to dive deeper into ray tracing and show you something more. So if we move to another area on the map, then here, to the left in the scene, we have a Churchill crocodile holding, and I have my friend Pavel in there, so if you can say hello to the audience for us, that'd be really nice. Hello there.
Hey, wait. Look, check it out.
That's perfect.
Look at, we can see him nod in the water.
Yeah, exactly, he's reflecting.
Do it again.
Yeah. That's amazing. So yeah, if you could do another favor for me and
Now, of course,
start.
we would expect that in reality, right? These things that happen in reality, when we're able to reproduce it using computer science, it brings us so much joy.
Yeah, exactly, it's super cool. So yeah, if you can do me a favor and we can start looking at some more ray tracing, if you shoot your fire cannon across the scene here, then with ray tracing on, when looking down into the puddles, even when the flame effects is off screen, we still get the reflective view of the fire as we would expect. But with ray tracing off, when we turn that off, even though the fire is shooting, you can hear it in the background, we don't see it reflected anymore. So then if we turn RTX back on again and we move forward up to the tram cart, then inside the window of the tram cart right here,
Oh, look at that.
and again, you can see the flame flying through the scene, moving dynamically. And not only do we reflect the dynamic moving particle effect, we also get a much more accurate representation of the surrounding environment. So, for example, you can see there's a high fidelity reflection of the surrounding city, but with RTX off, then you don't get any of the same fidelity as you would before, even when running the game at high quality. And then we've implemented a special little neat feature in this build for you, so we can slow down the time scale of the VFX. And if we turn RTX back on again, and then we can start shooting the tank's cannon on the sign over there, then we can see the explosion and the debris and the frostbite's destruction is also reflected in the ray trace view.
Wow.
Which, with RTX off, you lose all that detail, and this is just not nearly as exciting as it is with ray tracing on. But of course, we even, with ray tracing on again, we can move to the car, and even complex surfaces like this is not a problem for ray tracing. So when we shoot our tank flame over it again, you can see it on the fender of the car, on the hood, everywhere it's being reflected how you would expect. And a little fun thing is, if we move to the back of this car here, and we move around it, then we can in fact see our own soldier reflected in there. Yeah. And that, of course, is together with the flame that's being reflected in the car, and not just the car, also the street windows to the side, in the tram, and everywhere, the whole environment, everything is being ray traced.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Jonas, thank you. Congratulations.
That's great. But I think we have this really, really cool weapon in the game. It's called a V1 rocket, and it's got a pretty big flame. I think it would be interesting to see how that looks when ray traced. So, Pavel, if you can call that in and drop it at the end down there. Let's see how that looks. Right there. And that explosion is being ray traced again in the whole environment, how you would expect.
Oh, you see it in the windows, you see it everywhere. That's
Yep.
really fantastic. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Jonas, thank you. That's incredible work. I think you see now, the amount of computer science that's necessary for video games is really quite extraordinary, and it makes sense. And the reason for that is because we're trying to recreate virtual reality. We're trying to suspend you in disbelief. And as the rest of the computer graphics keeps improving, programmable shaders keep improving, photogrammetry improves, geometry tessellation improved, physics is improving. All of these different effects are improving the look of computer graphics. Then everything that's broken jumps out at you. Everything that doesn't make sense pops. The things that we really need to go work on are, one, we have to work on shadows, whether it's dynamic shadows or in global illumination, effects of shadow, reflections and refractions. Those three things are so hard to solve. If we can go solve some of those, in addition to everything else that we've done, we could really take computer graphics to the next level. But the thing that is really, really amazing, you saw this entire video game running, this entire demo was running with RTX on at 1440p, But what is amazing is that it was running on a brand new GPU. This brand new GPU, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce it to you.